When you blow it, makes a sound off. I can't make this music sound off. When we get on the mic, turn the sound off.
Hey, what's going on, fight fans? This is Sean with Boxing Sisters, and we're here with X-Man, and also we're here with the one and only Mark Abrams from 15rounds.com. How y'all fellas doing?
What's happening?
Hey, where did it go? I'm doing amazing, wonderful, extraordinary, exuberant.
Still buzzing about the Rigondeaux versus Donaire fight.
Yeah.
Great fight, Radio City Hall. X-Man, we know you were there to cover it for boxing.com. And then Mark Abrams, you said you were there too, weren't you?
You got to give your hands up to Rigondeaux. He did what he needed to do, and that's it. He won the fight.
Hey, is somebody outside? We're here. A lot of wind in the background.
Yeah, that's me. That is me. Excuse me. Hold on a second.
All right.
You know what? It's a shame when you beat a guy who's perceived to be the top 3, 4, 5 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, reigning fighter of the year, like Donaire is, and you can't become a star off of that. That just shows a lot, about Rigondeaux. Rigondeaux is one of these guys. He's immensely talented. I've been saying this for 2 years now. He's one of maybe one of the top 3 or 4 or 5 most talented fighters in the sport in terms of what he brings to the table and everything like that, his skill set. But let's be honest, he's been in some boring fights, and he's going to have to be matched with guys when you right in front of him, guys he knows that he can look good against in order to even build his stardom. I mean, let's be honest. A fighter that I worked with, Ruslan Pavadnikov, became a bigger star in a loss than Rigondeaux did in a win over a top 5 pound-for-pound fighter.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, let me ask you this, Mark. We had Julie Letterman called in a 116-111.
Yeah.
We had Tom Streck called in 115-112, and John Stewart 114-113. How did you have the fight scored?
Chris, man, Mr. Factor, E. Allen in the building, definitely happy to be on, man. Thanks for taking my call. I'll just be honest, first and foremost, when I predicted the fight, I thought Donaire would get the win. I had him by decision victory. I thought he would, do more. I thought he'd be a little bit more active. And I thought maybe his punch output would be the difference in the fight based on Rigo being, a real counter puncher. I didn't see the volume possibly coming from him when I was, predicting the fight. So I was definitely surprised. When I was watching the fight, definitely enjoyed it. I thought it was a masterful performance from a master boxer in Rigondeaux. I had it scored pretty wide. I actually had it 117-110. I had it 9 rounds to 2, all in favor of Rigondeaux. Man, I just thought he was the better boxer. He really dictated the action. He made Donaire fight the fight that he wanted to fight. Donaire wasn't able to use the jab, didn't use the jab effectively. And I just thought, again, it was just a masterful performance by Rigondeaux. I had it wide, 117-110. I gave the second round to Donaire. I thought it was a closer round. And some of the early rounds, some people talked about them being close, but I definitely gave, only 2 rounds to Donaire. Of course, the 10th round with the knockdown. But just, like I said, a great performance from Rigondeaux. I thought, the crowd booed at times. Maybe they weren't as excited about the action. But as a fan of boxing for a long time, I just thought it was a great skill performance from the former Olympian, and I was impressed by it. And I'm guilty because a couple of years, probably about a year or so ago, I was like, the guy is skilled and all, but he's boring. And I was not. And Matty Fresh actually called me on it and said, "Come on, man, this guy is truly skilled, and you'll see it." And I have to give a lot of respect to Fresh because he was exactly right. Rigondeaux really impressed me. Just great slickness, so crafty, man. It's a great performance.
I had it probably closer to Julie's card. I didn't score the fight per se. Some of those rounds.
So that's 9 rounds to 3.
Some of those rounds were absolutely nothing happened.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say to yourself, well, Donaire came forward, so give him the round. These guys threw about 30 punches a round each. So, how do you score rounds like that? When really not much went on.
Well, you know what, Mark? And I always hear people say, "Oh, you got to take the," and a lot of people don't even really know Rigondeaux. A lot of people they're on Twitter and Facebook. Oh, you gotta bring it to the champ. You gotta take the belt from him. I'm like, what fight are you watching? They were both champions, and they both had their belt on the line. Rigondeaux's a champion just as well as Donaire, and he's so on the radar that people didn't even know that Rigondeaux had his belt on the line.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, I mean, I stopped worrying about belts a long time ago. So.
Yeah.
All right, now let me ask these guys this. I'm gonna start with you, X, and then I'm gonna come to Mark. Anybody that watched the fight on TV on HBO, of course, people feel that Harold Lederman has a big influence on people, and he pretty much had it a shutout, except for the 10th round where he dropped him, and that's the only round I believe Harold Lederman gave him. You were ringside. Well, how did you feel about that, X?
Well, I wasn't ringside per se. I was probably like 10 inches away from the ceiling. But from my view, I would give probably Donaire 2 to 3 rounds, And I don't really like judging it from watching it from that kind of distance because I've made myself look crazy in the past. So right now I could just say is that's the noticeable rounds where when Rigondeaux really didn't do anything, and the knockdown. That's all I could really say until I sit down and really watch it and analyze it.
General, and hear me out on this one, Carcino. If the middle of the fight would have just let's swap the fight a little bit, all right? And I said this a couple times now, and I see some more callers calling in, so I want to make sure they get this, and I want to hear their view. But if you took 5 through 8 and put that at the start and put 1 through 4, that action that was happening in 1 through 4, I think you got a different fight that people will look at completely different. I really do, because then you have a build of a fight in those last 7 rounds. You don't really care about the first 4 rounds all of a sudden. Tell me, what did you think of the fight itself? Did you have it a tight fight? Was it a fight that the last round won it? Tell me where you're at in this one, and what you think. I mean, I never would have guessed Rigondeaux would have looked this good, and I never would have guessed that Donaire would have just, even though he's done it in some other fights against lower-level guys, or not on his level guys, I just didn't think he'd just go for the knockout, and that's it. Even though he's shown it, but I just didn't think he'd do it for the whole fight. What were your thoughts, Garcia?
Well, it was obvious that Rigondeaux must have a Spanish translator. He was listening to the show last week, and he listened to my instructions on what he should do to win the fight, and he did exactly just that, and it cost me money. But I'm contrast with 2 stories. One story, what's wrong with Leonardo Donaire, and the second half of the story is Rigondeaux doing what he was doing, boxing, and able to make Donaire look like the amateur in the beginning of the fight. However, when this fight started hitting the middle round, he stopped boxing and started running and walking around the ring without throwing anything back. And that led people to believe he was still winning the round because he was showing ring generalship. But that's when you're rolling the dice. You got a guy that's trying to make a fight, who's chasing you around, and you just ducking under his legs or whatever and running around. That's not going to win you some rounds. And as you saw on the scorecard, it wasn't winning them rounds. It was very close.
Well, Carcino, it seemed like fighting like that did wonders for Pernell Whitaker, did wonders for Paulie Malignaggi, so why can't it work for Rigondeaux?
Well, Paulie Malignaggi and Pernell Whitaker, well, it hurt Pernell because he actually did the same thing against Oscar De La Hoya, and you saw what happened. That was a fight where Pernell made him miss a lot, but he didn't throw anything back in return. Well, Rigondeaux let too many rounds go by where he wasn't throwing anything back in return. He was waiting a while before he did. And I think he won the last 2 rounds, and I think he won the fight. But I had it 114, 113. People are arguing with me over how close the fight was. I was like, I'm scoring the fight. I'm not caught up in the emotion. People, I told you, they suffer from eventitis. They get caught up in the event of the moment. That, man, this is happening. Rigondeaux is doing good. So everything that's going by, they just only see what Rigondeaux is doing. Nobody's noticing that Donaire doesn't have his legs. Something was wrong.
And you can tell if you look at the fighter and you can notice that he's not doing. It's not that Rigondeaux was. Everybody said, well, Rigondeaux took away what he wanted to do. And yeah, and no. Nonito would have been a lot more busier had he came into this fight 100%, like made the weight comfortably. He just can't make that weight anymore, and it was killing him in the fight. He couldn't get his legs under him. That's why in the ring he's trying to bounce to get a rhythm because he can't get his legs under him. He's conserving his energy to go for the knockout. That's all he could do. When he put punches together, it was very rare, and then it worked for him. In the 7th round, he hurt Rigondeaux, and Rigondeaux was able to use his boxing abilities and his ring generalship, is what they calling it, to stay away from Donaire until he could recover. And he did a good job of keeping the distance. He was able to maintain his distance, and even though he'll land a couple of shots, it did make for a boring fight in the midpoints when Nonito's coming forward, and he's just making a miss but not making him pay. And that's what the boos come in at. And people just say it's a masterpiece, and that's why I get confused at, because I'm like, well, if that was a masterpiece, then what was Terrence Crawford? Terrence Crawford just shows you that's boxing. That's a masterpiece. That's how you make somebody miss and make them pay after making them miss. You don't leave any gaps in between where people just say, well, he just ran the whole round. There's no argument for that. You know, I understood he boxed early, then he evaded early, and it made people look at the fight in a different tone. What Terrence Crawford did was say, okay, I'm going to make you miss, I'm going to make you pay, and then when the fight gets into clinches, I'm going to close the show. But Rigondeaux did that when he caught Donaire coming in reckless into the last round, so it really put a staple on him winning the fight. I had him winning the last 2 rounds. I scored it 114, 113. I think that was the correct score of the fight. If someone had it 115, 113, I'm okay with that too. But for Harold Letterman, oh my God, this is a problem with fans. I mean, when you're a fan of something, it's hard to judge a fight without emotion.
So, Carcino, were you highly disappointed in Harold Letterman's scorecard? A near shutout for the 10th round.
Oh, I already know Harold Letterman, how he is. I don't pay any attention to him. He's just there for comic relief. His scorecard would never be taken seriously by me. You know, he sees one thing he likes, and he just scores that consistently through the fight. And whenever he don't see it, he'll get mad and turn against that person.
Oh my God, he got off the stool and he didn't circle left like he did in the last couple of rounds. I don't know what's wrong with him. Just because he circled left, I gave the round to the other guy.
It's just ridiculous.
Julie Letterman, she's going to do a good job because she's my daughter.
Well, I originally picked Rigo to win the fight. Just by watching his past couple of fights and then watching Nonito's past couple of fights. It's been rehashed over and over. Carcino, oh man, whoo! Yeah, the way you just analyze this fight and how you scored it, way out there, bro. I can't even believe it. I'm thinking like this has got to be the Twilight Zone. This is not Carcino saying this. But my one thing I want to bring up is I don't think people are looking when you're looking at what Dan Raphael speaking about Kevin Iole and even Bob Arum. It seems like people aren't taking into consideration the whole HBO effect on the situation. Nonito was probably supposed to be the heir apparent to the throne at HBO. They already had a game plan already set in place to make him the big HBO attraction. This put a huge monkey wrench in their situation. And then when you look at Top Rank, and they're coming off two arguably Fight of the Year candidates, back to back, and then they have this type of fight. See, Bob probably was feeling like, okay, we're on a roll now. I'm about to monopolize this entire network based on the fact that they're not messing with Golden Boy anymore, and this is the time to take this.